A subscriber this week asked me if it was possible to have a healthy relationship or date someone with an avoidant attachment style. And this is an interesting question because I do see a lot of couples that I believe at least one of the partners has a avoidant, anxious personality style. However, when they're with this other person, people who are avoidant attachment style people usually attach to someone stable or someone who is an anxious attachment style. So oftentimes when they're together, it's kind of blurry. But I do want to tell you, yes, you can date them, and yes, you can have a healthy relationship. But you should really predict and expect some conflict. And when you have that conflict, it's going to be important for you to talk to a mental health care professional, like a counselor or someone in the field who can kind of help you through those real dips, because there will be dips. However, if you are that person with an avoidant personality style, there are things you can do. First of all, being very aware of the style and why you do the things you do in dating. And then secondly, being able to talk openly with your partner about it. That usually takes some work with a therapist so that you are aware of it, so you don't absolutely reject that that style is part of your person. And thirdly, that you can not feel shamed about it, but talk about it so you can practice healthier skills. A avoidant attachment styles usually happens in childhood, and it happens because the parents, your caretakers, basically rejected your emotional needs. When you had emotional needs, you learned that when you went to your parents, they were not good with it. They either didn't understand it, they didn't nurture you, they didn't cuddle you or say, gosh, I'm really sorry. Rather, they just tried to ignore it, or they might have made fun of you, or somehow it was dismissed. And so you started thinking that no matter what you needed emotionally, you would never get it. So you quit asking, or you quit saying things, quit expecting it. And your behavior, the way you act in relationships, is what manifested from that, from you ignoring it, from you not understanding it, and then how you deal with issues. If you're dating an avoidant personality style, then I'm going to tell you what you can anticipate, what you can expect. And if you see your partner in these things, it's important that you talk to your partner, that you sit down and you get more of a curious, objective idea about, I'm going to find out where this comes from, if they're aware of this, rather than accusatory or trying to shame or blame them. The first one is they withdraw from intimacy. They're not comfortable being vulnerable, really not comfortable with that. They don't really want to be real emotionally intimate. It scares them. They don't really want to, they'll be physical intimate, but after they need a lot of space, because anything that makes them feel vulnerable is going to put them in a very uncomfortable position, because they didn't ever get that. They don't know how that works. They never got that as a child, and so they grew up absent of that, and they have other behaviors that are filling that space. They feel uncomfortable with commitment. They dislike emotional expression. If you start crying, or you start, really getting upset, or, any kind of yelling, or just total, if you lose it, they will not like that. That will scare them. They don't know how to comprehend it. They don't know how to label it. And they feel out of control when you're out of control. They act fiercely independent. They do that because they understand that they can't really comfort another person. They have a lot of thoughts in their head, and they don't really know how to label their own feelings, because a loving parent will usually see a child feeling upset and go, oh, you're upset. You're frustrated. They can see the look on your face and mirror that back, and you learn to label these words. If you didn't have that from a loving parent, then you oftentimes will feel things. You don't have any idea what they are. And so most partners don't say, well, you were really mad, or you look frustrated. They'll react to what you're showing them. And so they don't like showing expression. They're misattuned in understanding your needs. So you may look really sad, and because they don't understand their own, they can't label it, they kind of minimize yours. So you could say, couldn't you tell I was upset? And they'll say no, and they're not lying. They just simply don't, they're just totally absent of that part. They usually will sabotage a relationship, and they'll sabotage it because it scares them to death when they start to feel. If they start to feel like someone is pigeonholing them, or that the next step is going to be they commit with them, they're terrified of that. And so they usually are the ones that will cause the sabotage for it to unravel. And they'll romanticize the past relationship they have. What they'll often do is they'll sabotage it. Then after weeks, months, they'll go through and they'll go, I should have tried that. I should have done that. They'll beat themselves up. And then if they're in a new relationship, they'll romanticize the past. They'll start thinking about the other person, even though they were the ones that messed it up or ended it. Okay, so how do you date someone with this style? Well, hopefully you are not this style, because if you are this style and you're dating someone with this style, it's extremely difficult. Usually when someone is dating this style, they're more of a clingy, anxious style, or they're a stable style attachment, someone that came from a good home. So they have more spare or more reserve to give this other person. First of all, you have to take into account your own attachment style. It's very important you don't try to date someone like this until you know what you are. Because if you're the same, this is not going to be an easy or an ideal relationship for you. You communicate your concerns very calmly and gently. You try to put yourself in their position, and remember, most of these people did not come from a childhood with loving, caring parents. They came from a childhood where they were neglected in some sense. There was no loving parent advocating for their emotional needs or even talking to them about how they felt. Feelings were not accepted in most cases. Allow them to take personal space when they need it. They'll get scared in relationships, and so it's important that you can see this, that you know this, and you say, are you feeling like you need a little space? And they're like, yeah, I'm just feeling, like I don't belong here. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to love you. That's how it will usually come out, but just know it's not you. It's more how you interact with them. And it's that fear, because it might be too good for them. It might scare them. They don't know what to do with what they're feeling. Remind them that you do things for them because you want to. You never want them to feel like a burden, or that you're doing it for them because you're trying to get something else. If you're going to do things for them, or any way you love them, you say, I'm doing this because I love you. This is how I love you. You don't owe me anything, because a lot of times in their life, they had to act a certain way in order to be loved or to feel loved. And so if you can remind them, that's going to help them quench those little voices that are coming back into their mind as they have this relationship with you. Try active dates over just sitting ones, because if you're doing something, it's easier for avoidant personality types to really enjoy it and get involved in it. There's less focus on their feeling, on what they need to do. If you're just sitting and then you're questioning them or talking to them, it's difficult for them. You can understand why. It would be like trying to take a test where you never had any of the lecture. And so you're trying to write this test, but you didn't hear any of what the professor said. So all of a sudden now you got to do this test and hope to pass. That's a little bit of how it may feel for them. Look after your own needs. Don't get so wrapped into this person, this relationship, trying to make it work, that you forget about yourself, because patience is going to really do you well in this sort of relationship. It's going to take a while. You don't want to push someone. You don't want to make this relationship urgent, or we got to figure this out. It'll come out, but it needs to come out at a slower, gentler pace. Encourage them to try therapy. I think if you go with them, or if you say, you know, I just think you're so healthy, you have so many possibilities, I don't want this to be limited because of a fear that you weren't in control of as a child. You didn't deserve it, and yet it's limiting your adult ability to love. I think that's sad. And then offer them, just say, I'll go with you, or just try it once. And if you don't want to go back, you don't have to, but you should at least try. Many times it's little encouragers like that that go a long way. And lastly, just try to keep yourself well mentally. If you're well, and if you're able to even mentor and say, you know what, I had problems with this or this, and I was able to work it through, and I have full confidence that you can too, but you need to want it. I love you on your own right. You don't have to perform anything for me. That's a very good objective stance to have in this sort of a relationship. If this video is helpful for you, please subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much.